MMA fighters are supposed to be heroes. Discipline, strength, honor. But in Chechnya, they became something else. The tools of a warlord. In Ramzan Kadyrov's hands, these fighters weren't training for championships, they were training for control. To silence dissent, enforce loyalty, and spread fear in and out of the cage. What looked like a government-funded sports program was really a propaganda machine with muscles. Behind the gloves were gangs, behind the smiles were death squads, and behind it all, a man who used MMA not to inspire a nation, but to intimidate it. This is the true story of how a sport built on honor was twisted into a weapon of fear. Start by looking at him. This is Khamzat Chimaev, the current UFC middleweight champion. With a perfect 15-0 record, he's known for his incredible takedowns and wrestling. But he made a lot of people angry, and we're not talking about fans of the former champion Dricus du Plessis. It's because of things like this. Here he is in 2023, ahead of UFC 294, posing with Ramzan Kadyrov, the dictator of his homeland, Chechnya, and he had a caption for the photo. "I represent my team Akhmat MMA, the best in the world. I want to thank them so much for all their support," the future champion said. In the process, he disowned his adopted homeland in Sweden. That name is no accident. That was the name of Ramzan's father. It means a lot in Chechnya. Go around Grozny today and you'll see little evidence of the fierce battles there around the turn of the millennium. Instead, it'll look a little like North Korea. You might not be able to walk 100 meters without seeing Akhmat's name or face. Because the official story is that Akhmat was the savior of all Chechnyans. So following the path of Akhmat is essentially the state's ideology. Chechnya's version of North Korea's Juche, the supposedly original and brilliant work of the founder Kim Il-sung. But unlike North Korea, sports are at the center of this cult of personality. Through sports, Chechnya was rebuilt, so the ideology says whenever they win, Chechen athletes shout Akhmat is power. Almost every sports club bears the name of Akhmat, and the MMA facilities are some of the best out there. The fighters signed to Akhmat MMA are well taken care of. The club pays for all their training, travel, and medical bills, and that's just the basic package. Win frequently, and you'll get a lot more. Think luxury cars and other goodies. And where does the club get its money? The Chechen government itself. Just look at who manages the organization. Is Abuzayed Vizmiridov, a grizzled veteran of the wars against Russian forces and commander of Chechnya's special forces. He's one of the most powerful men in Chechnya, and he's there to teach today's fighters everything that he learned. So in Chechnya, MMA is statecraft. Fighters aren't just fighting for money or glory, they're fighting for Ramzan Kadyrov's Chechnya. And Fight Club Akhmat has an impressive roll call. Aside from Chimaev, there's the former UFC light heavyweight champion Magomed Ankalaev and Alexander Emelianenko, brother of the MMA legend Fedor Emelianenko, who helped make the sport the global phenomenon it is today. Still, it seems a little inefficient, doesn't it? Why would a dictator spend millions on fighters? Is it because Kadyrov is an MMA superfan? Not quite. This isn't just a dictatorial eccentricity, something else is going on here. But before we get there, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us share stories like this that the UFC certainly won't talk about when promoting its next event. These guys weren't just trained to fight, they were trained to be seen fighting, for him. And when fists weren't enough, the guns came out. And that's literal in the case of Ramzan's three sons, Akhmat Jr., Eli, and Adam. He gets them on camera training with world champions when he can, and he goes far and wide to find them for photo ops. One of their sessions was with former UFC welterweight champion Kamaru Usman. Sometimes they're fighting in matches that everyone knows are fixed. The spectacle doesn't stop in the octagon though. They've been seen in Ukraine at the front lines once the Big Boss special military operation began. But not all fighters become champions, much less get groomed to take over the country. So if you're not as successful as you want to be, don't worry, Ramzan has a job for you. What are MMA fighters really good at? Knowing how to fight in a lot of different situations. If you just specialize in striking, you'll be taken down and pulled apart by somebody like Chimaev eventually. If you're no good on your feet, someone like Alex Pereira will eventually knock your head off. Sort of like he did to Akhmat's own Ankalaev this October. In MMA, you have to be smart, adaptable, and aware. In other words, you'd be the perfect bodyguard or something else. Kadyrov has his own private security force called the Kadyrovsky. It's been involved in everything from kidnappings and forced disappearances to outright murder. And there's an ongoing purge of gay people in Chechnya as you're hearing these words. Where do the Kadyrovsky's numbers come from? You guessed, a lot of them are from the ranks of the Akhmat MMA gyms. And it turns out that even some of the more successful fighters get a lot of incentives to moonlight as Ramzan's private mercs. Beslan Ushukov isn't at the level of a UFC champion, but he's still won titles in Chechnya. Not world famous, but famous at home. When he's not seen with Ramzan in his gym's clothes, he's seen alongside him in his military uniform. So imagine how horrifying it must be to see someone like him beating people on the street. In the United States, his body would legally be considered a weapon, so doing this would carry severe consequences. But here, people say that beatings from men who look like athletes are as common as snowflakes in the Russian winter. But the message? Once you're an MMA fighter who's loyal to the boss, you're untouchable in Chechen society. You get celebrated in posters and on TV, not just for using your skills in the ring or the octagon, but using them to make sure that all people in Chechnya follow the way of Akhmat. These guys weren't just trained to fight, they were trained to be seen fighting for Ramzan Kadyrov by any means necessary. Now you might be wondering, why does Vladimir Putin allow this to happen? Well, go back to 2022. The situation was bad at the front in the summer and fall. Ukraine was gaining thousands of square miles in territory and beating back Russia's poorly equipped and motivated regular troops. So the Wagner Group stepped in. You probably remember that it recruited troops from prisons, but that wasn't all. MMA fighters from Chechnya signed up too. The Akhmat Battalion from Chechnya? Same thing. Maybe it's little surprise that Kadyrov and Wagner head honcho Yevgeny Prigozhin were allies before the whole rebellion thing. Ramzan Kadyrov might have been a big critic of Russia's war effort, but even the boss isn't foolish enough to go up against the big boss. He has too much to lose. Where does Team Akhmat get the coin to pay for its fighters? Not from home. More than 90% of Chechnya's money comes from the Russian federal government. Which means only one thing. Putin knows everything that goes on, and he's completely fine with it. More than fine, in fact. It means he can keep his hands clean as Ramzan's poster fighters drag activists from their homes. As far as Putin is concerned, it's just the nature of things in Chechnya. If that's the way it has to be to keep the area stabilized, so be it, because it's really important for Russia's entire national project. Turn back the clock to the Chechen wars. Why did Putin feel the need to go to such great lengths to subdue the rebels? You can find your answer by looking at a map and turning back the clock even further. This is the Volgograd Gap. It's the little Russian stretch of land between the Sea of Azov and the Caspian Sea. This area was a prime target for Germany in both of the world wars. The Battle of Stalingrad, now Volgograd, was fought because of the importance to securing the Volgograd Gap. Nazi Germany wanted the oil there, but it's more important than that. It's a crossroads that connects Russia's European heartland, where 80% of the population is, to the two seas, Crimea and the Caucasus Mountains. Putin invaded Georgia in 2008, with some of Kadyrov's MMA fighters in his forces, because he feared that it would join NATO and compromise Russia's position here. Same deal with Ukraine. Since Europe is a wide-open plain, he was afraid NATO would do what the Nazis did. So he wanted more of a buffer. And look at that. There's Chechnya, right in the middle of the Volgograd Gap. Putin doesn't want trouble here. He has trouble enough elsewhere. Plus, Chechnya's MMA reputation sort of helps his own strongman act. He likes to parade himself as a judo black belt after all, even though he's never fought in a competitive match. So as long as things stay quiet here and Ramzan keeps the place free of Islamic insurgents while bringing in fighters to support Putin's own goals, he's fine with it. That means Russia's police and military outsource things in Chechnya to Ramzan and his fighters. There is no appeal for the people on the wrong side of the fist. The only thing the rest of the world sees is the same fighter on the posters for the MMA card teams that Akhmat promotes. It's all part of a sophisticated propaganda campaign, one that lets Chechnya avoid the self-isolating trap of North Korea. It actually makes this tiny place compete in a higher weight class. Khamzat Chimaev, Magomed Ankalaev, and Kamaru Usman aren't the only combat sports royalty to swing by Chechnya. Those are names you probably only know if you follow MMA. But there are a lot more famous ones. They all came and smiled for selfies while political prisoners were tortured blocks away. Khabib Nurmagomedov headlined the UFC's best-selling event ever against Conor McGregor. Here he is with Ramzan, Floyd Mayweather, and Mike Tyson. They've been seen living it up with the Chechen dictator too. Even Hollywood legends have gotten in on the act. Hilary Swank won the Oscar for Best Actress for her performance in the boxing drama $1 Million Baby in 2004. She's been seen with him too. Action heroes like Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal have been to Chechnya as well. So Ramzan Kadyrov is cleverly promoting himself as an action icon. He's seen as the head of a regime that's not only modern, but embodies all the things that a good fighter should have: honor, discipline, strength, focus, intensity. And he gets around too, or at least he used to. When the UFC came to the Olympijski Arena in Moscow for the Fight Night event, Kadyrov was there cage-side in camo attire, cheering his fighters on as they competed on the biggest stage in the sport. Who was he there with? One of them was Magomed Duadov, who's been linked to torture at home and intimidation of Ramzan's critics abroad. The other was Adam Delinkonov, who the Dubai police force accused of masterminding an assassination in 2009. The incident saw the use of a gold-plated pistol that was dropped to the ground next to the body. Doesn't take a genius to figure out what the message behind that was. And who are they there to watch? None other than the future light heavyweight champion Magomed Ankalaev, who won his fight against Marcin Prachnio by a spectacular head kick knockout in the very first round. The UFC hasn't done much in the way of pushback against Ramzan Kadyrov's influence on the sport either. Only one of his notable fighters got on Dana White's bad side. That was Abdul Karim Edilov, who allegedly tried to intimidate a journalist in 2017, so the UFC released him from his contract the following year. The critics have a name for all of this. It's a way for Ramzan to sportwash away the authoritarian nature of his regime and his participation in Russia's human rights abuses. And there's something else lurking behind the staged fight nights and state-sponsored gyms. It's the real reason this sports empire exists. In Chechnya, the ideal man is a devout Muslim, a fearless fighter. Oh, and he's someone who declares his unquestioned loyalty to the Kadyrov family. Ramzan might need that loyalty sooner than he thinks. Putin's idea for his special military operation was a little harebrained. This wasn't like the intervention in Georgia, Syria, or even the annexation of Crimea in 2014. It was for a full-scale war in Europe. Everyone had to know that if things didn't go well, there would be dramatic consequences that risked breaking the unspoken agreement that Putin made with his countrymen when he took over in 1999. Russia does have a constitution, but everyone knows that the words aren't worth the paper it's printed on. The real social contract in Russia is that Putin would reside over economic stabilization in the wake of post-Soviet chaos. The war ended all of that by failing to end fast. When Ramzan's buddy Evgeny Prigozhin revolted in June 2023, he revealed just how weak Putin is behind the scenes. Ramzan couldn't have liked that, because there are no institutions in Chechnya. The entire regime is built on a cult of personality. There's no constitution, no real history, certainly no incentive to keep him in power because he's done a good job governing the area. There's just the way of Akhmat, and the personal ties that Kadyrov has with the big boss in Moscow. But what if Putin's regime weakens? That could compromise his position, so he has to build ties of personal loyalty closer to home, around himself, and there's no better place to do that than in the MMA gyms. And here's where the money matters. Recently, the new UFC welterweight champion Islam Makhachev made some waves when he talked about the current status of Americans in MMA. There are no American male champions in the UFC right now. That wasn't the case when people like Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, Brock Lesnar, and John Jones were at the heart of the sports boom in the 2000 and early 2010s. But according to Makhachev, they can't compete anymore because our guys live for the sport. In the USA, for example, they don't worry even if they compete badly. But behind our guys, there is a family, the whole city, the whole republic. They feel this responsibility and go out with full responsibility and win. Well, maybe. But let's look at the numbers to see if he's right. New fighters come into the UFC making as little as $10,000 a fight. Once they get promoted, they can begin making up to $250,000 per fight. But that means you have to keep winning and bringing in fans. Fighters at the top of the sport, like Makhachev, can make up to $3 million in a fight. But remember, it's rare for fighters to get in the cage more than 4 times a year, and top champions like him and Kaimiev usually only get in once or twice. It takes heavy preparation, discipline, and a lot of sacrifice, not to mention the wear and tear piling up from all the hits. Meanwhile, Dana White also promoted the recent boxing match between Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. Those two made $200 million in one night. That was more money than the entire UFC roster combined for 2025. If it's not combat sports, the NBA offers a minimum salary of $1.3 million for the 2025-2026 season. Major League Baseball was $760,000 for the 2025 season. The NFL's was $840,000 for a rookie. Those sports come with better prospects for promotion and corporate endorsements than anything the UFC, the biggest stage in MMA, offers, and without someone trying to beat your face in. Sorry, champ, this time it really is about the money. It's not that American athletes can't compete, it's just that at that level they have much better options. If you haven't figured it out yet, Dana White is notorious for underpaying his UFC fighters for what they do. And that's the top league in MMA. Not everyone can get there. But all of it looks positively enchanting for people from Chechnya or Makhachev's Dagestan. That part of the world is really poor. The GDP per capita is only about 206,751 rubles. That's $2,544.69 in 2025. It's Russia's second poorest region after Ingushetia. So by joining Team Akhmat, Ramzan is buying his fighters loyalty. He's offering them a way out of deep poverty. Therefore, they all have an interest in keeping him in power. If he goes, they go, and so does their money. You can bet they'll use their bodies to keep him in place if anything starts to turn south. It's pretty clever, and if this model worked in Chechnya, what's stopping others from copying it? Meet the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. Here he is posing with Ramzan Kadyrov, probably asking for some advice. He's modernized his country at a quick pace and put this once feared religious police on leash. He also rules over a brutal authoritarian regime known to murder and torture dissidents. Jamal Khashoggi was only one of them. It seems like the Saudis are involved in every big boxing event these days, even when they happen in Vegas like the Canelo vs Crawford event. And guess who was on the undercard? Muhammad Alakel, a boxer who only made his professional debut in October 2024. There are now at least 14 big boxing clubs in Saudi Arabia. Don't be surprised if we wind up seeing some champions soon. Perhaps Ramzan Kadyrov will be on hand to watch the fights. So, next time you see the gloves, the lights, the anthem, ask yourself, who's really in the cage and who's watching from above?